and look back at an article that was published by the Washington Post on May 31, 1992. It was called The Last Resort, and it publicly exposed an underground classified facility in West Virginia. For over 30 years, the facility was an active, live facility with communication and all equipment updated. The bunker was kept in full operational status. The location of the facility remained a secret for over 3 decades. After the Washington Post announcement in 1995, the United States government ended the lease with the Greenbrier Hotel and declassified the facility. Denise and I were talking about this earlier today. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the Greenbrier? I've not been there yet, but I've always wanted to go.
Yeah, it's within the hotel, the Greenbrier Hotel, and it's got huge, heavy doors that slide open. Nobody would have known they were there until it leaked out. The whole thing was discovered and exposed. The question that we all have is, so what now? Where do these people go? Our government, maybe other governments, NASA, all these people that need a place to go should something happen to not only the United States but the planet Earth. And we need to restart. We need to have a place to begin again, whether it be an asteroid hitting, Third World War.
We started with the Greenbrier because it's real. The construction was back. It started in 1958. It was built during the Eisenhower administration. It's 700 feet underground. It's underneath the Greenbrier Hotel. It was completed and opened in 1961. And the facility, I mean, it's open to the public. You can go and see it. You can go on the Internet and look at it. There's hundreds of pictures of the inside of it. And it's like a little small community in there. During the Eisenhower era, it was built and provided. There were four entrances to the bunker from the actual grounds of the Greenbrier, and there was one that came up through the building. There's a 25-ton blast door on it. It's got decontamination chambers. There's dormitories designed to accommodate 1,100 people, a water plant with purification equipment, and 3 25,000-gallon water storage tanks. There's 1,400 gallons of diesel fuel stored underneath there, a complete communication area, including a television production studio with recording booths. There's a clinic in there, a hospital with beds for medical and dental operating rooms, laboratories, pharmacies, intensive care units, cafeterias, and they had meeting rooms set up for the entire House and Senate of the United States. So it's real. These things are out there. The Greenbrier is only a small tip of the iceberg.
And he was involved in the building of 13 of the underground bases that we're talking about. And they call these underground bases the DUMBs, which stand for Deep Underground Military Base. And I think at the time there were 129 of these facilities, and he had claimed to have personally worked on 13. The bases were being built for nefarious reasons, and that they certainly weren't being built to further the mankind and the comforts of mankind on Earth. So basically, he talked about 131 of these deep underground military bases, and he claimed that they were built to subvert the people, quite frankly. The government at that time, according to him, was building about 2 of these a year. And when you think about the dollars involved, the numbers he gave were $310 billion, and those are black budget dollars, which basically means that they are hidden from Congress, they're hidden from the people, and that's how the government gets things done when they want to get them done, out of sight and out of mind. The average size of these bases, these underground bases, were 4.25 cubic miles. That was the average size of them. And they were built at a depth of about 5,700 feet. Pretty substantial by any standard. The cost of these were each $17 to $31 billion each. And they employed approximately 1,800 to 10,000 people. He referred to a deep underground military base in Sweden that was approximately 30 square miles. just unbelievable when you're thinking about the depths that we're talking about.
The whole consensus here is that there is a culture, a military-industrial culture, if you will, that's operating within our society on a totally different level, and that they have technology that's totally advanced of what is publicly introduced, and that some of the allegations made were that they've actually gone off planet and done mining, or that these entities have brought elements to this planet where they're making metal components for very high-tech aerospace projects that contain elements that aren't earthly. And he had some of those. He had 3 or 4 of those things that he displayed. And he held them up, and these are really light, and it's made out of titanium plus other things. And he obviously had some very controversial stuff that he was showing at some of these presentations, which my guess would be that probably disappeared with the family pictures. I think most people would say that they believe that there are underground bunkers and bases. The question is, how many of them are there and how big are they? And the $64,000 question is, what are the purposes for them, or what are they being used for or intended to be used for? And I think that's where some of the controversy here is. This is where some of the wheels start to fall off some of these things. When these people that are working on these things start talking about that, the thing comes up about how these are boot camps or holding camps, and then they talk about these cultures that have developed where there's actually 2 societies, kind of living side by side with each other, or better, more like one on top of the other one. And you're looking at an extremely high-tech, compartmentalized, very secret, high stealth, very lavishly funded operations going on down in these facilities. I had, for a few weeks, I've been really getting very interested in these underground facilities and what's really going on here. And what's more important than the facility is this counterculture, this idea that these bases, they're building this base in Sweden that Mike talked about, and what are they going to do, or what is it that's going to happen that they need to get underground like this? And I think I think it's a given that some of these bases certainly exist. How deep and how many of them, I think that there's probably some speculation there. But the interesting thing is, what are they going to do with them, and why are they building so many of them, and what is what's the rush on getting all these things built so fast? When you're building these facilities, and just some of the research I did with some of the other writers, they're talking about facilities that employ anywhere from 1,800 to 10,000 people. They're building 2 of them a year. They cost, $26 billion. They're saying that half the black budget in the United States is allocated to building and maintaining these facilities, and not just the facilities of the bases, but the tunneling and they claim that they've got these tunneling machines. They're talking about bases that are between like 2.6 and 4.25 cubic miles in size. That's huge. You could stick a couple of shopping centers in something like that. Big shopping centers, malls.
Well, then you also combine the information that we've got regarding the connecting tunnels with we've got the maglev monorails that reach Mach 2 traveling from East Coast to West Coast, and I think when you look at the subject of underground bases, and specifically military, you break it down. You should break it down and ask yourself, first of all, why would you put something underground? You want to put something underground to either hide it or protect it. So an underground base in and of itself, I don't necessarily is a dark, evil subject. I think, quite frankly, the military of any government would be remiss not to have underground bases. They certainly serve a legitimate tactical purpose. I think anybody would agree with that. I think where it starts to get a little bit shady and a little bit creepy is, quite frankly, is when you listen to some of the thoughts of people like Phil Schneider, and there's certainly others. I mean, he is not the only person to come forward with this type of information, but he talks about prison camps. 39, I think he mentioned 39 prison camps that, facilities that were underground, sections of these bases that were going to be used when martial law was declared, and he had claimed that is precisely what the purpose of these many of these bases was, for a time when the government declared martial law. He also talked about he was heavily into the concepts of the New World Order, and how that the New World Order, some of the goals, of course, with the leaders of the stronger countries of the planet, would want to collapse governments one by one. And it's interesting because you look at the time that has elapsed since Phil Schneider's death, and then you look here at the recent activities in the Middle East with the almost domino-like collapsing of one government after another, and you connect that with this timeline that we've talked about before too, this acceleration in events in general, and this one government after another, and you connect that with this timeline that we've talked about before too, this acceleration in events in general, and this feeling that humanity is spiraling towards some huge event, whether real or imagined. It certainly jives with what he was saying in terms of governments wanting to do away with the country's boundaries and create this new world order.
When they talk about these bases, they've got these drilling machines that'll go through the ground, and they use nuclear reactors to generate heat. And these things have been developed and patented, and they can go through the ground and bore between a 30 and a 40-foot hole in the ground. And the grindings from the drilling basically are melted. The rock is melted and positioned around the walls of the tunnel, and it makes like a glass-like lining to the inside of the tunnel. And these machines can go through the ground, through rock, drill it out, melt it, and then mold it on the sides of these tunnels. And they're talking that they've got machines that can go 7 to 12 miles a day underground, completely building a 40-foot diameter tunnel with no debris. Because that would be the thing that you'd look at. If you're going through the ground like that and you're digging these vast tunnels all over the place, you'd have piles of dirt and debris somewhere to deal with it. It would show up somewhere. And it doesn't, because that's apparently how these machines work, is they make these holes through these tunnels through the ground, and when you're done, you've got this perfectly glass-lined, tunnel. And then the technology, the machines that run through them, they're talking about trains that run at Mach 2 going through these tunnels. Transportation that you could go from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco in an hour and something. So that's I think where you got to start wondering what's going on with all this technology. That's the thing that keeps popping up, is the technology, all this incredibly advanced, super advanced technology that's years ahead of the public. How the military and these military contractors have this technology that's 40, 100 years ahead of what we have on the ground here. We think, oh, we're really cool. We've got our Android phones and our, the microchips in the computers, and these guys are like, well, that was just like when, we went to Africa and we're given the natives glass beads and stuff, and that's what they're doing. They're throwing us a little bit of a bone every once in a while, but they're taking that money and they're using it to develop technology that could be used for a lot of things on this planet to help a lot of people out, and it's being very stingily used and selfishly used in a way to perpetrate these little cultures. And that's what I think, that's the underlying thing that these guys are upset about, is it's not that it's impossible, but why are they doing it? What's going on with this technology? Why are they doing this, and where are they going with it?
Right?